Hi, I am Melissa Jessel, founder of Golden Soulful Revelations and Creations. I am an artist and an energy coach and an integration coach and a sometimes plant medicine facilitator, ceremonialist. And I'm just coming on here today to talk about my journey, what brought me to psychedelics, what brought me on this path, and that's it really. Just simply sharing about why I'm passionate about this work and how the road led me here. And what here is I'm 39, very nearly 40, and I'm the mother of two young boys. And yeah, my journey at this point has been, well, it spans over a couple decades. I have to pay homage to cannabis. I have to say that cannabis, marijuana, weed, ganja, whatever words you use are totally fine. There's no judgment here. I say I have to pay homage to it because that's where it really all began. The first time I ever experienced that sort of slowing down, it really stood out for me in a way that, I'll acknowledge young, teenage, 20s, drinking. There is a good deal of that. And of course, I thought I was getting something out of that. I was letting the filters down, no judgment, feeling free. But with marijuana, it was a different experience altogether. And at times, yes, psychedelic. It just depends on your use. And I'll get into that later in another video. But I just wanted to start by acknowledging that. The rest of the time, I will mostly be talking about mushrooms. So, first time I sat with mushrooms, I was about 22 years old. I just moved out to Los Angeles. And my roommate at the time, the day I moved out, moved into our apartment, he had just come back from the hospital because he had accidentally broken his finger. And when he told me how, it was running around in a park on mushrooms, and that sounded like the most terrifying thing to me. I was like, how did you break your own finger? Like, this is nuts. But I was really fond of his friend. So they one day said, oh, we actually have some left over. Would you like to join us? We'll go hang out in some trees near the ocean. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I just wanted to be part of the group. I was new in town. I said yes. And it was a beautiful and mild and childlike journey. We literally lay in trees, connected to the earth, connected to parts of ourselves that had been lying dormant for a while or had been shoved way down deep because for whatever reason they're deemed unacceptable. The conditioning that happens. And 22 was turning into a year where I was really excavating myself again, like digging down deep and finding the parts that I had otherwise buried. So it was a while before I experienced mushroom medicine again. But when I did, that also stood out in a big way. I had gotten into photography. I had a fisheye lens, and we went out into Joshua Tree, a bunch of friends and I. And again, I was putting my trust in someone who was experienced, someone close to me. And it started out with just a little bit of a hike and sitting on some rocks, and then watching a friend of ours climbing some rocks and doing very picture-friendly things. And as I was looking through the lens, I pulled down my camera and I realized my vision was still doing it. And then from there, I was like, anything is possible. I can go wherever I look. And I realize, even as I say that now, how dangerous that can sound. Lots of big boulders and all of a sudden having this kind of tunnel vision of I can do anything. But that's why I'm telling these little tidbits from almost 20 years ago, is these are the building blocks that once you really like extract them and put words to them and play with them and realize like, okay, I have felt this before viscerally in my being. I've been to this mental landscape. I've been to this emotional landscape. I've rediscovered this about myself and humanity and everyone, and that connectedness to what can always be present without any kind of assistance from plants, plant medicine. You know, you can be fasting and totally in your own element and still have access to these larger parts of yourselves, ourselves, that we know at childhood. We know these things about. We know how powerful and beautiful and expansive we are as children. So these are just beautiful aids to help us remember. And I'm sure I'll say that about 1,000 more times. But those 2 times stood out for me, and there were many times similar to that second time afterwards. And you can categorize this as sort of a recreational period, but it was outdoors in nature with friends, people I trusted, in a safe feeling environment. Anytime you're with the earth really can be a pretty safe feeling environment. And yeah, just layer by layer, untangling the mess of thoughts and patterns, beliefs, you know, belief just being a thought we keep thinking, that had come online through various ways, through just as we grow up, which is true for all of us. And I had really, really patterned myself to not believe in myself. Like very little, like my rule of thumb was to always make myself small. Small was safe, hidden, unseen, and just not using my voice, barely using my voice around certain people, certain groups of people, you know, men. I'll speak with some clarity. And so that began to lift. I began to really reconnect with what I actually enjoyed doing in life. And I was like, wow, I really love coming out here and climbing around and feeling free, feeling like a kid. So that in itself was very healing. And after some time sitting with mushrooms in various ways, I became really curious because it just came across my path about ayahuasca. And I found someone who was a childhood friend who was organizing a retreat in Peru. And this was in, well, it first was in 2017, but then I had to get surgery. And so it ended up being in 2018 that I went down and joined and really learned what it was to have plant medicines holding space for me in a really intentional way and in a group. So like sitting in circle, there's like, it was so like primordial, being in circle with all these people. And a few of us felt like it's like we're in an infirmary, we're healing. And so I went onto this whole trajectory of like, this is healing, psychedelics are healing, we're healing ourselves. And it's like, as the culture began to speak about that too, I got very excited. But what I didn't understand fully, because, you know, it was mostly recreational before, was how to truly integrate what I experienced, what I was having come into my awareness, remembering, and bringing it into my daily life. Because there's sort of that euphoric effect for a few months after, or there can be. And I sometimes had done some journaling. Those early years, I wasn't really journaling. So There's just bits and pieces, but they come back with time. They come back to show me, like, you remember this, you experienced this. And I value that so much now. And now I take it, I hold it and play with it until it feels like, okay, this has taught me all it has to teach me for where I am standing right now at this point in life, letting it go and seeing what else comes up. And this works for everything. But I was not prepared for what came next, which was becoming a mother. The greatest or longest of the psychedelic journeys. So that happened, and it was end of 2019 that my first son was born. And, 3 or so months later, the world joined me in my maternity leave or maternity shutdown. And I realize now, actually, it took a while to fully understand this, that it really depends on what area you were in, how you experienced it. And I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, the DMV, as it's called locally. And things were pretty shut down here. It was pretty isolating. And that's when I really got in my head, like, I need help energetically. And there was a few times I tried to sit with the mushroom medicine, and for various reasons I've only started to understand now. It's like the older the mushrooms are, the less potent they'll become. And you can have so much anxiety, so much tension and resistance in you, in your being, in your body, that you can basically stave off the true, full psychedelic journey. That doesn't mean there wasn't wisdom and gems that still came with those experiences. So finally, feeling into that I need help energetically, through that same friend who coordinated the retreat to Peru, she put me in touch with one of her friends who was starting a podcast, and speaking a lot about the motherhood journey and having had, profound spiritual experiences with psychedelic plant medicines. And so I connected with her, and she just talked a lot about her spiritual mentor and teacher and coach. And so little by little, I started to say yes to this. And so it started with a podcast she had where she interviewed her coach, and I was like, this woman knows exactly what she's talking about. Because I think there was a little bit of a spiritual righteousness or a glimpse behind the veil thing happening in my head, with the ayahuasca and not doing proper, to the degree I needed, integration. I was trading in one set of shoulds for another. I was trading in this is how you operate in society, to no, no, throw it all out the window. And then that just was, the anxiety was perpetuated through the, keeping the should energy around, because it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's the energy with how you do it. It's not how you feel, it's how you're feeling about how you feel. And so these were some of the things I was learning from this, just listening to this spiritual coach, we'll say. And so it took me probably another 6 to 9 months to fully go there and get the energetic help that I was looking for. And then as I went deeper and deeper in and looked more and more and more at my own stuff, a real deep dive into self-inquiry, deep dive into all right, I do this thing. When this happens, I do this, and it doesn't feel good. And how do I shift that? And you can shift anything by simply being really focused and mindful of your thoughts, because your thoughts are generating your feelings, your emotions. But sometimes it helps, not all the time, but definitely for me, it helps to go so deep into the, where does this come from? Getting so deep into the curiosity of like, why am I this way? What makes me tick this way? Like, why do I do this thing that's really self-defeating? Like once you like really peer at it and see like, oh, this shows up everywhere, and it's really based on this one event that I would never have described as a trauma, but now I'm realizing like I'm behaving in sort of a traumatized way, and it's affecting my entire life. So that deep dive self-inquiry, I was like, oh my gosh. And I knew that I learned this through the medicines. I learned this through cannabis. I learned this through mushrooms. I learned this from ayahuasca and everything in between. And whatever that means. And I realized that I just hadn't been truly taking the time to process and integrate what was being shown to me. Like, oh, I remember this fantastic thing about myself. I'm so powerful. Anything I see, I can do. It's like, okay, this isn't just true when you're running around the desert, tripping on mushrooms with your friends. I use that phrase lovingly. I'm trying not to get too hung up on words. I want to speak in a way that everyone can relate to and understand. So why is it that that's true for me in that moment and not all the time? I'm a powerful creator. I'm a powerful being. Like anything I set my mind to, I can get there. I can get there. If I see it, I can get there. It's a focus. That is not just true when you are with psychedelics. So you have to, not always, but what helps is going in and figuring out, all right, why is that not always true? What's standing in my way right now from feeling that or experiencing that? And so it's sort of an unwinding. And that's what I experienced with doing energy coaching on my own stuff, lovingly, and putting a lot of love on it and going through a horrification process around that, feeling like, okay, I really am pretty icked by this, icked out. I do not want to actually do this anymore. And now I see it all the time. And like, I still do it, but like, I see it like right after. And I'm like, okay, apologize to yourself, love yourself, whatever is needed in the moment. So eventually you start to realize you're doing it in the middle of doing it, this pattern, whatever it may be. And then you can start to get ahead of it. And also you can just shift your mindset with really focused intention. But sometimes you really have to get clear on the what this is and why in order to choose to clear it. And I think that's an important, all of this is talking about remembering your true essence, your true self, remembering your divine, your sovereign self, remembering why you're here, which is joy and play and creation and expansion, which just happens. The healing and the growth and the expansion, those things just happen when you're feeling really good, jazzed up. So you don't have to wrestle it to the ground and kill it every time, but if you need some motivation to make shifts to actually make your life a little bit better, if you're losing sleep at night, if your self-talk is constantly beating up on yourself, if you're just not where you want to be in your career, all the reasons, there's just multiple approaches. That's all I'm saying. And so my relationship with the mushrooms and with psychedelics in general changed pretty drastically after this. And through the coaching, I was like, I never dreamed I wanted to be a coach, but I want to learn how to do this for others because this is integration. This is such good integration. And so that's the past few years, that's the route I've taken. And slowly but surely, I've developed a means of communication with the medicines without necessarily having to ingest them or be in full communion with them. I can kind of have a conversation with them, for lack of a better term. And so I've ventured into expanding that relationship and holding space for others as they experience that as well. And it's been beautiful. And it's definitely been under the lens of like, this is healing. This is like, what are your intentions? Setting, of course, showing the sacredness of yourself, the respect for yourself, honoring yourself and the medicine and just the process in general, life, universe, source, everything. And always also having that gratitude for these medicines, for the earth, for Gaia, for everything, all that is, and for coming back to your deep breath and your relaxation and who you are when everything is stripped away. Because you're not your name, you're not your job, you're not your house, you're not your spouse, you're not anything. There's nowhere to stand, as Ram Dass would always point to. And it's so fun to throw in a Ram Dass here. Yeah, in expanding in how I hold space for others through the integration, through sessions with psychedelics, I've realized where my true passion is actually coming full circle to where it all began. Coming together, the community, the full communion, sitting in circle around the fire, but not having it be quite so solemn and serious, because we can play and be in our truth. We can play and be respectful. We can play and have a divine and sacred experience where the upliftment that happens for yourself and the group in itself is healing and ripples out to the world. Whew. So that's me saying that if you have any shame about like, oh, that time I did it 20 years ago and it was a recreational, and it doesn't even count. That's not true. It's not true. The mushrooms are very forgiving. They're working through you on a spiritual level, or you can sub in the word spiritual for an energetic. They're working with you vibrationally. No matter what it is you think you're there for, no matter what your set and setting is, the set and setting is there to honor you and protect you and ensure that you are having the experience that you're truly ready for. Because the mushrooms aren't always gentle. My experience is that they've been very gentle and loving with me, but I know that's not across the board true. So that's roughly my story. And I look forward to sharing details about specific times. I look forward to sharing how do you juggle this as a mom. I look forward to sharing the way this all evolves and develops, and like it's a beautiful, beautiful path, but it's not for everybody to walk, because this shows up in so many different ways. These opportunities to like drop all the pretense and the layers, everything we're filtering ourselves through. You can do that in so many ways. Any way that you feel good. Play, pray, meditate, dance. Feel yourself being danced. That's it. That's it. And like I said before, the motherhood journey is the longest of the psychedelic journeys. So even becoming a mother, being a mother, there's no end to the ways in which you can remember and feel your divinity and feel fucking good on this plane of existence. And I think I'll cap it there. So thanks. Thank you for taking it in at this time. Love to you all. May this serve only the highest and greatest good for all. Love you.